Yes, welcome to Music Connect Africa, the hub for global music industry news and insights. Each episode, we take a look into the history of our entrepreneurial professionals who are the driving force behind the scenes. It gives me great pleasure to highlight the players who exercise tenacity, drive, and who create smoother operated systems for our music arts and entertainment industries. In this week's edition, we highlight the journey of Jah Shakespeare, a veteran in reggae country, a profession that includes DJing, a radio veteran with over 40 plus years of experience, and an author. Yes, throughout the years, Jazz Shakespeare has written hundreds of articles and three books about the music and movement that enchanted him from a young age. Today, we will delve into his career as a resident DJ, his radio experience, and I am very much interested in learning more of his Rasta Revelation book release, a spiritual novel that features stories about reggae and the Rastafarian culture, including musical references. Welcome, Jah Shakespeare. Jah Shakespeare, you there?
I'm here. I'm here. Very honored to be on your show.
Yes, quite a history, I must say. Quite a history. I am intrigued as well. I get the opportunity to interview and learn more about all these amazing persons that have done the great works behind the scenes. And there, some of our audience, a huge part of our audience, do not know, about persons such as yourself. Interesting persons, that is. So, yes, welcome, and I appreciate you being here today. Um, Within my introduction, we talk about yourself as a veteran in the reggae industry. And pretty sure within your career, that's a phrase that has been coined over the years. So, being a veteran in in reggae industry as well, talk about the various things that you have done, as it pertains to reggae and your work within each industry.
They already called me a veteran in the 90s, so you can imagine how long I've been here.
Yeah.
It was the end of the 70s when there was a big bit of a reggae hype here, and suddenly there was a department of reggae music in the record store that I frequented, where I went to buy my records. So I didn't really have a specific musical choice at the time. I loved disco and funk music, especially black music in those days.
Yes.
And then suddenly there was a department of reggae music, and there was music that I never heard before. It was mainly dub music. I don't know about the owner of this record shop, how he get hold, probably the British label, Trojan label, because most of the records were on the Trojan label.
Mm-hmm.
And this was dub music, and this was so different from all music that I heard until then. And it really intrigued me from the beginning. And also, so the music, and then very soon after that, I was even more intrigued by the lyrics of those reggae artists. We are now talking the golden years of roots reggae music. So almost all the singers and DJs were singing and chatting about Rastafari, which was also something that I knew nothing about at the time. Here in the West, there was an image of His Imperial Majesty as a kind of dictator, like they had in those days. They had Bokassa and Idi Amin and Mobutu in the Congo.
Yeah.
So here in Europe, it was like, this guy in Ethiopia is the same guy, the same type of guy, dictator, and he's been there forever and whatever. But then suddenly I hear reggae singers really sing praises about him, and they are talking about some history that I never heard about, and they have a totally different interpretation of the Bible. I mean, I knew of the Bible. I was raised Catholic, so I know the stories, but there was a totally different. I always say it's like this Dennis Brown song, "The Half That's Never Been Told." It's one of my favorite songs of Dennis Brown. That was what I realized at the time. I was 17 or 18 years old. Like, well, there's an other side of history which we were never told about on schools or in our literature or in our media. You know,
Yes.
we only the first thing we hear about slavery, for example, was this TV series Roots, which I don't know if you remember that, but that was really the first time that we saw what happened in the last 300 or 400 years to Afro Americans. We heard something about slavery, but this was really a confrontation. Also, this had also the reggae artists, they sing about this, slavery days, and so this was really like I don't know how you can explain it. That me, like being a student in literature in Europe, I suddenly got intrigued by this whole story. So that's how it come about. And then, yeah, and writing has always been my thing. What I do in life, I'm a writer.
Yeah.
So from a young age, I decided that I want to earn my living with writing. So then I stumble upon this whole culture and movement. And I think, well, nobody's writing about it in my language anyway, in Dutch, which is, it covers 2 states. It covers Belgium and Holland. So I thought to myself, well, if nobody's writing in my language about these subjects, why I start with it. And so from the middle of the 80s, I started writing for a national newspaper about reggae music and black music in general. And later on, I started some magazines, reggae magazines, which resulted in the end in 2002 in the website reggae.be, which is still the only portal in our language for reggae and Rastafari information.
Quite interesting, though. You have said a lot within, that brief introduction as well. You talk about writing various articles for the magazine. Have you written various articles over the year as it pertains to reggae? What would you say is one of the most interesting articles that you have written?
I would say the most interesting article is when I travel to Jamaica and come back, and then I write my story of what happened. And every time I say to myself, I have to limit myself to like maybe 3 or 4 pages, but every time and again, I take so many notes and I come home. And now again, my story about my traveling to Jamaica again has to be in 5 episodes or something, because it's too long for people to read in one time. So I think these are my best. Yeah. Looking back, there's you can read reviews from festivals and concerts and interviews, but these are pieces who have some literary value, let's say, who can stand the test of time. These are really stories.
Now, for myself, I'm Jamaican, but I've resided in the U.S. and I spend most of my time in the U.S. So every time I go back and I come and I return to the U.S., my kids or my friends always say, "Oh, you're back to speaking like a Jamaican." Now, for yourself, when you visit Jamaica, do you also are you also speaking a little bit of patois as well?
Oh, they will think I'm ridiculous talking like trying to sound like them. But inevitably, when you have longer conversation and reasoning with Jamaicans,
yes,
you get
you get the lingo. It just happens naturally.
Yes.
It just happens naturally. So
yes,
yeah.
But I'm not gonna, don't ask me to talk patois now, because that won't lead to anything.
No, it's okay. So you really became enchanted by the Rastafarian movement at a very young age. You started writing articles. When was the first time you visit Jamaica? What year?
1994.
1994. And we have visitors or persons who have never been to Jamaica before, and the very first time they get to Jamaica, it's like it's like heaven. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. But what would you say is the one thing that stand out for you once you get to the islands? Is it the sunset, the beaches, the ability to, actually hold a conversation with the locals? What's the one thing that you look forward to?
Yes,
The
the
people.
people of Jamaica, because I've heard so many songs and I've read so many books and articles about them. And
Yes.
then when you come there, it's like, yeah, and also all these songs, only they have so many references to places in Jamaica and situations and the way people say things and proverbs and things like that.
Yes.
So even after all these years, I come to Jamaica and sometimes suddenly I hear something that I think to myself, "Whoa, that's from that tune. I never knew that they were talking about that." Can I give you an example of that?
Of course.
So the very first time we were in Jamaica,
Uh-huh.
my one of yeah we my favorite one of my favorite records from way back, and also that's a guy they don't know in Jamaica anymore, was Dr. Alimentado. I don't know if the name rings you a bell.
Mm-hmm.
He has an album which in Europe is considered to be a classic album, like really in the 70s toasting style.
Yes.
And the title of that album is Best Dressed Chicken in Town. So you can already imagine when we came to Jamaica and we were in the car and suddenly we were behind the truck.
Yeah.
And there we see Best Dressed Chicken in Town. So it was like, it's a guy who gets chicken to the restaurants, I think. It's a famous chicken factory, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So from one part, they teach me about a history that I've never known about.
Yes.
And the other, on the other part, they teach me about Jamaican reality and culture. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, it is that, at the very top of the hour as well, I played Prediction, right? One of the tracks which we are going to get into as we talk about the book, as we continue this interview as well. But talk to me about Prediction.
It's a British reggae band who emerged also in that same period. And it was also the first time I saw a reggae band live, because they came to my hometown, which is Antwerp.
Yes.
And they were very popular and still are. And I also think in America they are very popular. I think they won some Grammys.
Yes.
Yes. And also when they have this classic album, Answer's Revolution. It was Bob Marley's favorite band, if I'm not mistaken. And on this album, they have all the lyrics. Jamaican albums at the time, they were very nice to see and they had nice artwork, but mostly you don't get, like on European pop and rock albums, the lyrics of the songs.
Mm-hmm.
But Steel Pulse, since they were on Island Records and everything, you had it there. And then, there's a song like Prediction, and it talks about Marcus Garvey and Selassie was neglected. I have the lyrics here, and they were talking about who prophesied this and have some faith, and ask Elisha. Yeah, I remember looking all these references, trying to find out what they were talking about, and yeah.
Wow.
So it was a European band, but from Jamaican descent, of course, because they also they also talked in a kind of patois, in a kind of Rasta patois, of course. And this was the first generation who was in England.
Yeah. They're from Erdington area, back in Birmingham. Yes, but the Prediction track itself that's one of your favorite tracks. For persons who would listen to this interview and would like to know the background in terms of that track and your involvement, what are you willing to share in terms of the track itself?
Well, it was one of this album as a whole. If you listen to all the tracks and you put all these lyrics together, then you get it's like a painting of everything Rasta.
Yes.
And also a lot of references to Black history, whatever. Because I could choose any track from this album.
Yeah.
But Prediction also musically was at the time very sounded very new with this. Like a Spanish guitar in the beginning. It sounded different from Jamaican reggae, but still it was really roots and culture music.
Prediction, yeah, from the days of old. Prediction, yeah.
We are talking, about Jah Shakespear, who has written hundreds of articles as well, and he is a veteran of the reggae community, and throughout the years he has done, in his profession he has done DJing, a radio veteran for over 40 plus years, and he is an author. Today we are going to delve into a few of those topics. Of course, we started out talking about about his interest in reggae music and how he got started. And one of the things as well that caught my eyes that you are a you are a radio veteran for over 40 plus years. What an experience. That's quite an experience. Myself, I've only been doing this. This is going to be my 5th year. And
you're much younger, I suppose.
For the 5th year, but you know something, it is that throughout the years, persons have always asked me to do radio, and I'm like, no. I have all these different jobs, and I says no, I don't want to be tied down, and I just would not do it until I was tricked by a friend, and that's how I ended up starting this as well. But it's quite interesting for myself because I come across so many different personalities as well. But the ones that are, I would say, that are long withstanding are persons from my immediate community. And when I say my immediate community, not necessarily just Jamaicans, but the reggae community on a whole, because it comes with so much rich experience and vibe, regardless if it's a reggae artist from Africa or from Europe or Jamaica, other parts of the world. Now, within the 40 years of your radio experience, what would you say is a memorable experience in terms of reggae? Whether it be a reggae artist or a reggae segment that you had to cover?
There were many memorable moments, but I want to say it was on small radio stations. It was not like it was on the national radio station here in Belgium or in Holland. So I've always made my shows for independent radio stations. And in that respect, I was always free to do what I wanted, or get some special projects going. So very early on in my let's say radio career, although I never earned a penny with it, to be honest.
Yes.
I already did 2 memorable shows, who lasted 10 hours. It started at midnight till 10 o'clock in the morning. And the first year of my first radio show, I did the history of reggae music. And the second year, we did like a chart, the top 100 best reggae tunes of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that I did them very early on also already. And then like this chart, I did a couple of more times later on. We also did, and also these were very extended shows. They lasted for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours. So, for example, we also did a female reggae top 100, so only female tracks, because otherwise every time you do a top 100 of reggae tunes, you see that there's maybe 1 or 2 women singing and all the rest are men. So we decided at one time to just make a strictly female list there. So that was very nice because people loved it. And then during Corona, during the COVID, when we were all inside, we were, we organized together with a famous sound system here in Belgium. Finally, on the national radio, we got to do a reggae chart also. We managed to get a lot of people busy recollecting voices from all over, from their favorite tunes. And then they programmed the top 30, and that was on national radio. But that was during COVID, and they were looking for new formulas and special things all the time on the radio. I mean, since all this thing, since COVID and Corona has gone, it's the same old situation as before, that we never hear reggae on the radio, on the mainstream radio.
Considering, yourself and being in this space, how receptive is your local audience as it pertains to reggae back then compared to today? Have you seen a shift? Is it a shift for that's more entertaining in terms of the genre itself and even yourself? I can't imagine being in a profession where it is that I can being in a profession where it is that sometimes you're slighted, and it's not looked at as how should I say, serious, or professional in a sense, or compared to other genres that are easily just fly aside. And I have a conference where I usually talk about, yes, when you say reggae music, people tend to put it in bracket and say it's poor people's music.
Yes.
It's everybody's music, but of course the poor persons tend to delve into this music because it's so inspirational, it's so motivational. However, the music itself should not be treated as less than a class or any other less. It is a genre that speaks volume as well. And I tell everybody, it's not because I'm Jamaican. I just say, you know what? It's the best genre. Whatever you're looking for, you can go over there and get it. We got R&B, we got country, we got reggae, we got dancehall. We have it all wrapped up into one genre. But my question again, right, is that compared to when you first started in the business and where it is right now, what's the local reception in terms of how persons are perceiving reggae in your part of the world?
Well, in the reggae community, always very good, of course, because I was like their spokesperson, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can hear a dog in the back who's not happy that I'm talking so long. But yeah, in the mainstream media, I was very happy to have an editor at the newspaper I worked for who was also open to other genres of music. So sometimes, as I told you before, maybe once a year or twice a year I can write about reggae music.
Yeah.
But for the rest, I'm considered a bit of an outcast, of course, and also reggae music. People even tell me they hate reggae music here, so it's very difficult to understand.
Yes.
And that situation hasn't changed much. And actually, there were a couple of shifts. That's in the middle of the 90s when dancehall came up, and there was this new generation who considered me to be like an old-fashioned roots guy. Although I loved a lot of the dancehall stuff. But this was a younger generation. They were also talking about slackness, gun talk, batty boys, all type of subject that didn't relate to me, or that seemed very futile to me compared to what I was listening to at the time, roots reggae music about Rastafari, Africa, whatever. So to me, this was really, I don't know if there's so many tunes from the 90s that will survive after our generation,
Yeah.
But that was the first shift. And then there was another shift in Europe, specifically like 10 years ago. It was the dancehall age came to an end. And now what you now have is more, they call themselves dub sound systems. They started building their own sound systems in the old Jamaican fashion. they play new dub style music, like European electronic dub style music. But what is very remarkable and very, for me, and of course, very agreeable is that all these young guys who have the same age as me as when I started, the first 2 or 3 hours they start their set by playing old roots music from the 70s and 80s. So that is, I don't know if in Jamaica people realize this, but this music is now the music of the youngest generation of reggae fans in Europe. So I'm talking Burning Spear, Culture, Max Romeo, Pablo Moses, Israel Vibration. I can go to a dance night right now, and there, most of the youths, they can be my grandchildren already by now, but still we love the same music. So that's, to me, that's very, yeah,
You know,
yeah, very nice, of course.
you know what you have said is actually true. When I go to Africa, every country that I'm in, the music that they are playing are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. My my own kids, especially my daughter, she is listening to 90s reggae, 80s reggae, 70s reggae.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
And I'm like, where you know that song? She says, no, this is, and she'll be listening to all these tracks. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So there
yes.
are so many persons that are in tune to the 70s, 80s, 90s reggae. Not that they're not listening beyond that, but you find that there is a community and a great audience, a greater part of an audience that's actually um, diving into, you know, that
Yeah.
whole era, and it's taking it aback. And I'm like, wow, yes, but
Yes.
but
And you also see that at the lineup of the festivals. Eh? I
ah,
mean, when we have the major reggae festivals, they are all artists. Yes, a lot of them dead and gone now, specifically of my generation, the
yes,
last couple of years.
yes,
But for the rest, I mean, most of the artists, they are from, yeah, last century. That's what I can say. Luciano, Don Carlos, Sisla, those are the headlining acts now.
yes, yes, yes. Because and within any genre of music as well, we see that sometimes it makes a shift. But this is a shift that I think has been going on for quite a while, and persons have ignored it, you know,
Yes,
and are saying, well, you
yes.
know, these new artists. No, no, I am not 20 years old, but I can tell you this audience that has been there, it's been there for a while, and it's like they're not going anywhere because they love the music. They're still listening to the music
Yes.
as well. But I am, you know, want to see what's going to happen this year in terms of to see if, well, it will make a shift, or if it is that there are others that will rise to the occasion. But you know, something else I realize as a producer, I am getting a lot of content, a lot of tracks from Gen Zs and younger, who are actually sounding like the 70s, 80s, and 90s artists.
Yeah.
Their
That's true
recordings,
in Europe too. Here in Belgium, they even have the same equipment. They go to special fairs where they buy the vintage equipment from way back to get the same sound.
yes, they are sounding like the artists back in the days. And I'm like, wow, I can see it, I can hear it, and I love it. I love it. I'm just waiting to, you know, see where it goes, as well as I am in that community. And you know, I have a few interviews that's actually coming up on a few of my shows where some of those kids are will be highlighted. They are young kids
Uh-huh.
sounding like Dennis Brown. Yeah, and
Yeah, true. That's true.
yeah, and it's great to see it. It's great to see it. But now it is that we also would like our radio personalities to recognize, you know, that there is a shift in the music. There can be a shift. However, the talent is what's important, and these are young kids with talent that are singing these songs. So we would like to actually
True.
be able to showcase them as well. Well, of course it is that you we want to dive into your books. Yeah, and one of the recent one, Rasta Revelation. Off here, we were talking about the book that it's made its way earlier in 2000 or between 2008 and 2010. However, it is that you have done a few works over the years. So when you first released Rasta Revelation, it was in Dutch. And so recently you have also opted to ensure that it's translated in the English version, which I love that you have done that, by the way. Right? I love that you have done that.
So many people ask about it, of course, because...
Mm-hmm. I love that you have done that. Yes. So, we talked about the book itself. So, my question to you is that for the listening audience who would like to know about Rasta Revelation, from the perspective, it's what would you tell them if just to give them a brief synopsis of what to expect from the book itself?
All right, so let's say 80% of it is reality and is telling actually my own experience in how I came to discover the whole culture and came to Jamaica, went to Ethiopia, but I put it into a different character, also a writer by coincidence. And I've put a little murder mystery in there to keep the attention going, to make it like an exciting story too. And then I think you get the whole. I mean, you could say that I'm telling the story starting from Solomon and Sheba, like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, or even from creation, as one of the tracks is saying by Don Carlos, because already, I've read some Rasta scriptures who talk about the origins of man, and of course we all know that probably was in Ethiopia. So again, there the Rastas they tell the truth from the beginning, and so that's what I start out also in the book. We have a murder, and then I start. There's a guy a very good friend of the victim, and he says, we have to try to solve that because something's not right here. And he goes to Jamaica, he goes to Ethiopia, and while doing that, he gets to know the whole story of Rastafari, and I try to do that in a kind of chronological way. To give you an example, when the main character first travels to Jamaica, he travels through Florida to take a plane there to Jamaica, and there he has some time to visit an old plantation. So already before he comes to Jamaica, you get the old notion of what happened there on the plantations with slaves from Africa. So, and like that it goes on. And actually the main inspiration of it, I don't know if probably Count Ossie, A Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. Count Ossie was the first main Nyabingi drummer in Jamaica.
Yes.
Who played on several tracks already. Oh Carolina was his very first track where he played, and during the 60s and 70s he played on many tunes. He played percussion, and they made an album which is also to be considered a classic in Europe, Ground Nation. And these guys, although Count Ossie already died like in 1975 or something, but the musicians they kept on playing, and every Sunday they have a rehearsal or a session in Rockford. Now, this is an area of Kingston where people advised me not to go, being a white man and things like that. But I made the best friends in my life, I think I made there in Rockford. And these were the musicians of Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. And they've been doing this like from the 50s. They've been playing Nyabingi there. And what was so very special also is that they still have guests coming in, horns players like Cedric Brooks and Johnny Dizzy Moore, who used to be with the Scatterlights. Still, I was there one Sunday, and they were drumming, and suddenly they came in and they started jamming with them. And this is actually how ska music originated in the beginning, and reggae music. So this was very inspiring to me, like being there, like at an occasion where things were happening exactly like they were 30, 40 years before that. And also, it was not like a strictly Rasta thing, because these old Rastas, they didn't even have dreadlocks. They called them beardsmen when they were young, because they let their beard grow like that, like it said in the Bible. And reasoning with those people, this was probably the best inspiration, because, for example, one of them, they're all dead now, of course, because in the 90s they were already 70, 80. One was 90 years old. But the oldest one, is the very first time I met him, he started talking to me in a way like, well, when I was a youth, I read in the newspaper that in Africa a king was crowned and he was to release all black people. So you can imagine that I was sitting there like, whoa, I can't get any closer to the origins of this movement than this guy, because he was there. This is how Rastafari came to Jamaica, because some people read in the newspaper that the Black Emperor was crowned, and maybe Marcus Garvey was right with his prophecy,
Yeah.
And so it was a privilege and an honor for me to talk to these guys, and a lot of the stories, they are woven into the book. Huh?
A rich man heaven is a poor man's hell. So many years I've been slaving in your factory. Ooh, yeah. Never had a chance to talk with the boss, yeah. And for so long I've been living in this old community, yeah, where no one knew my pain, yet I paid the cost. No one knew my pain, Lord, yet I paid the cost. But I would rather to live poor and clean than to live rich in corruption. I said that I've got to live clean. Cause Jah, I got custom in judgment.
Hats off to you for just about, embracing the culture as well. It's very much appreciated. Now,